Right after my second speech.
It's hot. My shoes give me like 30 degrees more. They're like then don't wear them. You're gonna have to like get up.
I turned the fan on, but I don't think it's working.
I think I should better.
The AC is on outside.
Yeah. There's water outside. Are we not supposed to touch this?
Oh my gosh. Oh, I just pressed the on button. So I don't know.
Right. Timer.
I'll put my annoying timer again. Shoes. Torts. I will install them to them on. I'm so done.
Elaine, go outside and be more productive.
She's gonna be even worse when she's outside, because then she's by herself.
She can't focus when we're debating.
She can't focus anymore.
Right.
Okay, I say this because I love you.
Sure. So as a first speaker on asking on the after side, I strongly affirm today's resolution about how the American university should divest from oil companies. Oh, it's oil companies? Okay. So we set the criteria as net benefits, and for definitions we define divest as the opposite of investing, which is quite straightforward, meaning like putting your money in stocks. So yeah. And American universities, I think that's also very straightforward. Universities that are American. Amazing definitions. And our plan is that the leading American universities.
Meilinda, I have a question, please. So, what kind of universities would do this? Would this be every university?
Let me explain my plan. So our plan is leading American universities should who are investing should take out their money that they're investing or sell or remove those stocks and take that money into and if you still want to invest in the company, invest them into companies like renewable energy sources instead of oil companies, which is a non-renewable source instead. So moving on to our first contention, those companies who right now they're investing in something that is not as beneficial as the alternative we provide in our plan about renewable sources, which I will start explaining right now. And right now they are investing about $12 billion in total, like all the universities are investing about $12 billion total, plus an additional $5 billion or so due to other costs, which are put into the investments. And so the reason that things like oil companies aren't as beneficial as renewable sources is because since oil is a non-renewable source, hence the name, you can't suddenly make it come back after using it. So the moment you use that oil, it's gone. That's it. It's a one-time thing. You can't suddenly magically conjure it back up and bring it back to life. Not literally bring it back to life, but yeah. And so those things like oil, and oil is a fossil fuel, and fossil fuels expel carbon dioxide, and that's very harmful for the environment. And the environment is already facing a lot of climate changes, and climate changes are not drastic. Climate changes are not really that good for an environment because when say the carbon dioxide, there's already a lot of carbon dioxide in the air right now due to emissions from cars, factories, and all that stuff. And the carbon dioxide, it starts to thin the atmosphere, ozone layer, yes. And that's not very good because the ozone layers are protection from the sun. And as we know, it is slowly thinning and it's making things like global warming. Global warming is something we would like to avoid due to many hazardous reasons. For example, there could be the extinction of animals and plants, and that's not going to be very beneficial if the plants die because those are the main sources of energy in the food chain, and that will cause huge disruption, which would cause, ultimately, human death also. And that's not something we want. So we probably should be investing in things like renewable sources, because renewable sources, they're like solar energy, wind energy, hydro energy, is that what it's called? Okay. It's better because it's safer for the environment and it's more beneficial as a whole for the people as well as the environment as before, because they're just taking energy from natural things like sun's rays. They're taking energy from water, if it's a water energy thing like a dam. Taking energy from wind if it's a windmill. Yeah, windmill. And so by taking energy from those more natural things, it gives a better benefit because we're not really expelling carbon dioxide even more, which is negative if there's going to be a lot of carbon dioxide. And if you think about it, from this newspaper, Business Standard, it's a newspaper, by the way, in a study they've somewhat deduced that if at the rate of consumption of things like oil and all those fossil fuels, if we keep on going at that rate of consumption, then approximately 52 years from now, it will deplete completely, and we won't have any fossil fuels, which includes oil, which is, yeah. And so if you think about if these universities are still investing in companies like the oil companies, which is a non-renewable source, which is a fossil fuel, then if you think about it, 52 years from now, there's no longer going to be any fossil fuel company. Well, the company will still be there, but there's no fossil fuels, which includes oils. So it's sort of pointless to be investing in a company where technically their product is completely gone. Yeah. And so right now, those universities, they should be investing in things like as in our plan, renewable sources, because those won't really disappear per se until many billions, millions of years when the sun theoretically explodes. Hey, it's true. I'm sorry, but thinking about it, it's sort of like, so it's more reasonable to be investing in something that technically won't deplete. So the solar energy won't deplete unless something happens to the sun. And if you think about it, nothing's gonna really happen to the sun right now. So it's much more reasonable for these companies to be, for these universities to be investing in something more practical and better for the environment. And since our criterion is net benefits, then they should be considering like the welfare as a whole. So they should be trying to invest in companies like renewable sources, which are better. So the problems of fossil fuels, wait, never mind, sorry, wrong one. So by those universities investing into the oil companies, so they're supporting something that really they could be investing in other. Oh. So by investing in these companies, they're technically investing in something that isn't as effective as the alternative we're providing, which is renewable energy, therefore not really beneficial. So I strongly affirm today's resolution.
I canceled yours so I wouldn't go off when you were speaking. When I saw it go to 0, I was like,
Oh, that's why.
Yeah, that's why I didn't go.
That's why when I pressed on it started again. I'm like, wait, why is it
I know, because I didn't want it to go off while you were speaking.
so nice?
You know, if you're
As the first speaker of the negation team, I strongly negate today's resolution that American universities should divest in oil companies. Okay, as they haven't answered my question about what American universities mean, I'll take this to mean,
We did. Remember, you were asking about which type of one. So I said leading. Investors. Right?
I was asking which type of which universities would be participating in this.
Yeah, the leading ones. Like the leading investors.
Okay, so forget about that. So I'll be going over the aft case and then the neg case. So then they stated that in their first contention that renewable sources would be better than oil for these universities to invest in, and they went on to list all the positive impacts of renewable energy compared to fossil fuels. However, they haven't really provided a clear link as to how this university investment would lead to all these things happening, how the loss of money from these universities would lead to a decline in the fossil fuel market, how it would in any way at all help the eventual depletion of these fossil fuels, because compared to all the money that's being invested in fossil fuels right now, this would not make much of an impact. And okay, so because there's no link to that, I will now be going over the AF case. So our first contention is neg case. Sorry. So my first contention is that of symbolic action. So this issue of divestment has been making headlines, making people feel like they're being concerned about climate change and greenhouse gases. However, this action is only symbolic. We're not actually creating, these universities aren't creating a major impact through this action of divestment. And there's a historical example of this as well. In South Africa, back when there was apartheid there was pressure on people to divest from stocks of companies that were doing business in South Africa. And people did this, but there was no change in the market value of the stocks of these companies that were in South Africa and practiced apartheid. So this action would be ineffective because logically, if you think about it, even if these universities were to let go of the stock, someone else would buy it anyway, because in the status quo, fossil fuels are a far more profitable industry than renewable sources right now, as renewable sources are currently very inefficient and hard to harness energy from, which also, so this tricks people into thinking that they are doing something to benefit climate change, when in fact they are not. And because they think that they're doing something, this diverts attention from the real problems and the real ways in which we can fix these solutions through innovation and research, and by curbing our consumption of greenhouse gases through things like cars, when instead we're squabbling over universities divesting in oil. So divesting in oil is a harmful thing which detracts from any real change that could happen. So our second contention is that of financial burden for
No, just don't ignore this person.
is that of financial burden for the universities. So Harvard is one example of a university where studies has shown that Harvard would lose $108 million annually if they were to divest from oil. What this would mean is less money being spent towards education, and many universities in the status quo are already underfunded. So this ties back to the first contention of symbolic versus actual change, as if these universities actually had the money that they would have gotten from these investments, then they would have been able to use that money to actually innovate. And do you have a question, or are you just standing? Okay.
No, I have a question. So, wait, did you say that Harvard's going to lose 12 million or
108 million.
Oh, 108 million.
Okay.
Same man.
Okay, where was I?
Amazing.
Where was I?
Billion?
Oh, right. That
less
money
money
could
spent
actually
on
be
education.
used for research and innovation to come up with true solutions to the issues of climate change and greenhouse gases, because what we need to do is we need to value the effects of this symbolic distracting change versus the actual concrete money produced by universities investing in oil. And if we compare the two, we can clearly see that investing in oil would have a greater impact, as that means we have more money for education and research and innovation. Whereas if we were to divest from these universities, we would not be making any significant positive impact at all, but we would only be accomplishing the negative impact of cutting money for education when already the school system in America in general is underfunded and programs are being cut. So on the grounds of education and being able to fund actual rather than symbolic change, I strongly encourage you to vote nay.
12 billion. I'm sorry. It's 12 billion. It's
No, you're not supposed to clap. Who are you?
Yeah,
Okay.
I want to know who he is too.
Oh, okay.
like literally.
This is my friend William. He goes to Monta Vista. He's also a novice. So, yeah.
First of all, you guys. So.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, we were supposed to debate, but then I wasn't debating, so he's just gonna flow.
Cool.
Yeah. Ignore me.
Okay. Ignore our face.
Sorry.
No, this means you have another judge. This means you have to, like, actually debate.
Wait, as opposed to what?
What we usually do.
Good Anna. As opposed to exactly what you do every day, which is the same.
Okay. So as the second speaker of the affirmative side, I strongly affirm the resolution that American universities should divest from oil companies. So first, I'm going to be going over the negations, contentions to our case, and then my refutations to their case. Okay, so the negation side refuted our first contention by saying that by saying that there's not a clear link provided in our plan to actually help fossil fuels or go into renewable energy. So we're going to be saying that our link is that the money that is invested in these renewable energy companies is going to be helping to find an alternative for the fossil fuels. By finding this alternative, we're going to be able to find a way to stop the depletion of fossil fuels. That's how we're going to be helping the fossil fuels. Because if we're able to find an alternative to using these fossil fuels, then we can stop the depletion and actually be able to change this and get better resources and better sources for the energy that we need. So that's going to be our link in our plan. Okay, so going to the refutations to the negation, refutations to the negation side. So the first contention was of symbolic action, and it just makes people feel better by not actually by divesting in these oil companies. So, as we know, the environment is on a really bad path right now because it's being hurt every single day, and we need to make change and help it be better. So every little change can actually help. Investing in renewable energy helps us find an alternative, as I said before. So this little change, by finding this alternative, whether it's using solar energy, wind energy, water energy, it's a better step than using fossil fuels, which will eventually deplete. So even if the negation side says this is symbolic action, this is not true because we're actually going to be helping. By divesting in these companies, we're finding this alternative. And we're not just going to be taking the money out in general. We're going to be taking the money, as we stated in our plan, and putting it into companies that focus on renewable energy. So by putting this money in renewable energy, we're going to be finding alternatives. So they also mentioned climate change. So the climate change is going to be slowed down if we stop using the fossil fuels, as we mentioned before, because the slower the consumption is, the less climate change there's going to be in the long run. So by putting money into renewable energy, it's going to be better. So as a refutation to their second contention, that was a financial burden, we want to say this is actually a good point for our side because we stated that the American universities in total, they invest at least as a minimum $12 billion directly into oil companies and an additional $5 billion in related companies and productions. So this is a lot of money that the colleges are investing. And instead of investing this money into the fossil fuel and oil companies, we want them to invest in the renewable energy companies. So we're going to be taking this money. We're going to be taking this money and putting it into renewable energy instead. So while the colleges are spending a lot of money, they're putting this money to renewable energy. And we want to talk about how this is an investment. The point of investing is so that they will eventually get the money back because they're using their stocks. They're putting their money in for a good cause. So by investing, they're going to be getting the money back because renewable energy is always going to be a better
source of energy than the fossil fuels. Because as we mentioned before, fossil fuels hurt the environment and they're going to eventually deplete, so we have to find the alternative. So by putting money into renewable energy, the companies will be able to get a profit from this. They're going to be able to actually get positive benefits from this, as they're going to be eventually getting the money back and they're going to be making a difference in our environment. So now I'm going to go on to strengthen our own case. So our first contention was that it was an impractical investment for universities. It's an impractical investment for universities. So we want to talk about this more because they're going to be investing $12 billion plus additional $5 billion just in this fossil fuel companies. And they should take this money and put it into renewable energy because the renewable energy is going to be what's going to be helping us, as I mentioned before. So renewable energy is better for the environment, as my partner mentioned in her speech. When we use fossil fuels, they're going to be releasing carbon dioxide into the environment. And this is really bad because our environment is already going in a really bad path, as I mentioned before, because there's been a lot of global warming recently. And 2015 has been the hottest year in the history of the Earth, as we watched in Homeroom's Day. So, yeah, just wanted to add that in there. I was paying attention. Okay, so, yeah, so then when we see this, we know that there is an impact happening. This isn't just some, thing that people are overpopulating. This is actually happening to our environment right now. This is a prevalent topic, and it's getting worse every single year. So by finding the alternatives, we're going to be helping our environment, because when global warming occurs, we're getting a loss of biodiversity. We're hurting the trees, the plants, and this is something that we rely on. And also hurts humans, because we live in our environment. We live on this earth. So we need to help the earth, because by using these renewable energy sources, we're going to be providing alternatives to using fossil fuels. So as my partner mentioned, fossil fuels are estimated to run out in 52 years, and that's the rate that we're using it right now. But if we keep investing in these oil companies, the rate of consumption is only going to go higher and higher. So this could lead to the fossil fuels being depleted even earlier than these 52 years. So if we keep going on this path, this is really bad because we need these fossil fuels. And if we need these fossil fuels, then we have to find different sources of energy instead, because without the source of energy, we depend on greatly. So to find these renewable energy sources, we have to invest in them. And by the American universities taking out their money from the oil companies and putting them into renewable energy sources companies, they're going to be finding alternatives. And in our plan, we mentioned solar energy, water energy, and wind energy. These are all alternatives to fossil fuels. So by putting money into this, we're going to be helping the environment. So as second speaker of the affirmative side, I strongly affirm the resolution that American universities should divest from oil companies. Okay, I have to go.
Same.
Okay. Wait, you're going to ask me? But I need to go too. Sorry. There's no last speech.
There is no last speech.
I have to put on my shoes now.
Right, so
Thank you.
no, just walk outside a lot.
I would if it was socially acceptable to walk outside with
That
socks.
would burn your
It
feet.
totally is.
Yeah, it is, but you burn your feet.
Like, don't walk in the parking lot. Stop.
Okay,
So how we were talking about education.
Sorry.
and research and all
Sorry.
that.
So good.
Wow.
How we were talking about how money was lost.
That affirmative side is gone. Oh, I see
Investing.
that.
No,
I'll
but
do
it's-
it.
Say that if we were to be investing, then with that money that would be lost,
Really, I'm
use
talking
it
the voters'
What
speech.
is just
Because both of them are leaving.
education, what
The
you
last
call it,
speech.
developing
How do I do that?
technologies more to make it more lucrative for investors.
Yeah, both of them left.
So we're helping finding alternatives for renewable energy, not them.
I have no idea what's going on here. I'll try.
There's two more next
I don't know.
speeches first. It's okay. You have two next speeches to prep a final speech.
Oh,
I'm done. I'm just trying to.
okay.
Okay.
Sure.
We'll actually do something after.
Okay.
That's our coach.
Hi.
Whenever you're ready.
Wow. Okay.
Email it to them.
Oh, Daenerys
you're really
is on it.
dedicated.
Wait, what's she dedicated about?
No,
Not
she.
speaking. But she's.
It's weird not seeing your speech.
I know.
It's so weird. sorry.
Yeah,
No
she's
offense.
always talking. Her mouth's always open.
Okay, laughing is like just as bad too, so you should like
Don't make her laugh.
don't laugh.
Don't laugh, Daenerys.
You should laugh.
Reverse psychology.
Laugh, Daenerys.
I thought you said whack.
How rude.
Okay. Alright.
Okay, so as a member of the negation team, I strongly negate today's resolution that American universities should divest from oil companies. As a brief on-time roadmap, I'll just be going over our case, and if I have time, we'll go over their case. Okay. Our first and only contention is that divestment is hypocritical and symbolic, and that although it is an action, it's not really an impactful one because it's not really doing much to actually change the status quo, which is obviously climate change, because divestment makes it feel like another large company is taking steps when in reality they're just simply investing in another company, and it discourages individuals from actually taking action, and the actions that individuals take are really the ones that impact our society and the issue, which is climate change, the most. And so from this we can see that divestment is purely hypocritical and symbolic, and it doesn't really do much to change the status quo. And when we invest, or when American universities invest in these companies, they are simply wasting money that could be spent on education and research. They're wasting this money on something that won't really impact our society much. Also, you don't really need divestment to make changes, and divestment only discourages changes from actually happening, and these changes are the ones that really impact the problem. And since less money is being spent on education and universities, this is negatively impacting the students that go to these universities, because these universities are less focused on providing a high-quality education to their students, and they're more focused on maintaining good relationships with these companies that they invest in. And so priorities are being shifted, and for these reasons, I strongly negate the resolution.
Danny has it on his dock. Are you laughing? I don't know. He just kind of knows
No.
He's not laughing at you.
As the last speaker on the negation side today, I strongly negate today's resolution that American universities should divest from oil companies. Okay, so pretty much throughout this entire debate, the AF team has been stating that investing in renewable sources would be better than if they had invested in fossil fuels. As my partner didn't go over the AF and NED cases as much as I would like to extend that now. Okay.
It's okay.
So,
Just do it.
yeah. So, the AF team stated that money in renewable companies would help find better alternatives to fossil fuels. However, we, the negation team, feel that our plan to keep investing in these oil companies would better help in the challenge to find these renewable energy resources. As the AF team has stated, there's $17 billion invested in oil. That's a lot of money. If we were to pull all that money and then invest it in some other field such as renewable energy, which at present is not very lucrative for investors at all. It's a very inefficient business, and it's a very inefficient way of harnessing and collecting energy. These universities would suffer a loss of money as a result. This means less money being spent in education and less money being put to innovation. Innovation that could be directed towards finding greener energies. So if we keep funding these oils, it would bring in more money for the universities, which would lead to actually being able to create true change through research to make it lucrative for individual investors to fund these renewable sources. Okay, so they're talking about how money in renewable companies would help find alternatives to fossil fuels. Does not stand because in the status quo, renewable energy is very inefficient, and any investment in it would only bring loss to the people who invest in it. So the only way to make it lucrative and favorable for renewable energy to exist would be through research and innovation, and this could happen through universities, which is why it's essential to have funding for these universities, which would not happen if we were to divest from oil. So I would like to go over again about symbolic action. So our criterion today is net benefit. So if we do divest from these oil companies, it's only a symbolic action. There's no real positive impact that's happening, so there's no benefit from this. Whereas there's an active harm of these universities losing money that could be spent for education and research, and it could be better spent to fuel the workforce of the future. Now, if we were to divest, what really would that accomplish? Nothing, except making the headlines and distracting people from the real issues regarding climate change and global warming. Whereas if we were to keep investing in these oil companies, true, that would increase consumer demand that would help fund these oil companies, but it also gives these universities the chance to have more money to spend to provide for education and innovation of green technologies. So the positive impacts of investing in oil companies clearly outweighs the negative, and divesting doesn't really have any positive impact while it actively hurts university funding. So since the neg team has better fulfilled the criterion, I strongly encourage you to vote neg.
And there's no app, so feedback. Unless you want to give a speech.
I have no idea what the plan is.
Okay. Then no. Then no.
That's fair enough. Alright.
Danny will not give feedback.
Maybe show your computer to see.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe we can like read it for you. Do you want to say?
Is there something I
She's
missed?
yeah. No, she just doesn't talk.
Oh, I see. We're trying to get her to conserve
She
her
just
voice.
really doesn't like us, so she
Yeah.
decided not to talk to us.
She's
Well, that seems
in the
logical.
light of the assemblies today, she's conserving water as well as her voice.
How is she conserving water?
Because since she's not
She's
spending
chugging
as much
water.
energy.
Huh?
Well, she's not
No,
spending
like-
as much
no.
energy talking.
I said it. I meant it like.
Sorry, I didn't
Metaphor.
follow your response. What?
Okay, wait.
Now I'm truly confused. Okay, so do we still need to find a partner for Perlin?
Yes.
Wait, didn't Nikhila just debate though?
Or it's not going. Frank. Well, Frank is like, he says he still needs to ask, and then like, so So he said it's best if I find other people as well as backups.
Okay.
And I emailed all the rest of the people doing Carly.
Wait, Daenerys wrote that I could have done a topicality?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so
Okay,
their
I thought
plan.
that was only like in
Okay.
really extreme cases.
No.
No.
you
Technicalities
can run-
happen
Okay,
pretty
so-
often.
You could have run something called Extra T because their plan was to divest and then reinvest
Into other
in
things.
renewable, which is not the resolution.
Okay.
So they're gaining benefits from something that's not within the scope of the resolution. That's called extra topical. So yes, you should have run extra T on that, and you could have won solely on that.
Wait, question, did anyone ever mention the criterion?
Yeah.
Like in their voter issues?
I mean, there was only one voter issue speech, and she mentioned that they wanted.
True. So they just said it and then just stopped talking about it, I guess.
I mean, they didn't have a voter issue speech.
I know, but it's still good to mention it from the speech because it's what the
It would have been easier for you if your partner had refuted all the points, so you could. But like, I mean, what can you do? But like, sometimes if your partner clearly doesn't know what she's doing, you should probably like pass her notes and stuff like that, because like a lot of the times your partner is like maybe like nervous or something, and they're not saying the thing you want them to say. You need to make sure you say it, especially if it's like super important. Like if they're gonna drop an entire point, you need to like slip them a little note, you know. And like the judges aren't gonna be like, the judges won't get mad.
Yeah, another question, did you know what your partner was talking about with like the whole student thing? Did you guys make that refutation together or did she just come up with that on her own?
Yeah, she was just
Oh, I see.
on her own.
Oh, okay. Well, that's okay. I think most of your points were your points were good. I just I don't know, maybe putting you could have put more offense on it by saying it would not only impact the students, but you could also impact jobs that would be lost as a result of the American universities pulling out like that, because that's what the affirmative team's plan is. They'd lose a lot of money.
Well, the thing is, you'd also want to be arguing, you're saying that it wouldn't affect the industry, and part of what you're saying there is other people would invest. So in that case, you wouldn't want to argue jobs, right? Because those are two different angles on it. One is it would hurt the industry. The industry is good. The other one is won't solve the problems of the industry because the industry also exists. It's you can choose which one you want to go for. If you're going to run symbolic, you would want to run that the industry will still exist because other people will just snap up the stocks because they're worth a decent amount and people want to have that kind of stocks. And then say, because it looks like universities are already doing their part, universities won't feel like they have to do anything more. Students at the universities would be like, oh, well, my whole college helped, so now I don't have to do anything. And then, anything more there?
You might have wanted to stress the fact that they were universities and if they so you did refute their plan even though it didn't go for the resolution, but which is good. But you also stated that something about universities and how basically the universities aren't able to make that much of a difference if it's not if they don't invest in
Take your
if
pens.
they don't invest in
Take
renewable
your
energy,
pens.
the US economy is gonna crash and there's gonna be bad things happening everywhere. Just stress the fact that once again they're universities, so it's not impacting the whole entire country as a whole necessarily. So you might want to talk more about that. How universities have a limited
Do you want to
impact.
debate this resolution or no?
It was just
Right
in
now?
my voter's speech
Yeah.
having to
10 minute
refute as well. I kind of
No,
lost
okay.
everything.
I'll give you
I just
10
forgot
minute
everything
prep,
I was
or you
going
can
to
do it-
say
Yeah,
that
that's
was
okay.
actually about voters.
It happens all the time.
What do you feel like you need the most? Sorry.
No, you're fine.
What do you feel like you need the most work on?
Everything? Does that count?
Say,
Okay.
you want to do
Cindy said you
more
were
on
bad
that
at,
first point, you just try to say oh, they have no link. Like try to
I think
like
you're speaking in
turn it
time.
entirely. Be talking
Just
about like,
kinda like-
when universities are the ones invested,
You say
they can
what-
hold the
you
companies
say what
accountable.
you need to say.
And if it's a bunch of just individual investors, each with only a little amount,
Gotta be
it's much harder to
Um,
force industry to change.
Are you better on app
Because
than
no one really has a vast monopoly on the stocks, so they don't really have influence, right?
Yeah.
So like if one university owns like 50% of the stock, the oil company kind of has to listen to them somewhat. But if like 100 people each have half a
Then
percent,
I'm gonna make you go
unless
app.
they manage to unite, right?
And then
Not
so
just
you'll
gonna
have
happen.
you'll have a case and then I'll give you like 10 minutes and then
Let's see. I didn't
you go
totally
app,
understand
and then
Your
I'll go
second
neg and
point.
then I'll just
until like your
And
last
then
speech. So explain
I'll give
that
you
more. You're
feedback
talking
on
about
this. Okay.
like I guess what you're saying is if it's a waste of money to invest in renewable and then it'll waste the money? Or I didn't really see how that was for your side. Because like they're investing money implies they'll get it back. And then they're not really like it's not going.
Okay, every time
right?
I open my phone it's you. Hey, you wanna see my
I don't know. And
That's a lame.
have more specific examples of what could
this is
happen
the latest child.
without this. Like you had the South Africa thing with apartheid, but have examples like if we didn't do the symbolic
Okay,
action, like right now, divestment serves as like ammunition
Let's do
for a larger movement.
something
If we take
Let's
away
see
the
if there's, like,
ammunition, then the larger movement doesn't have anything,
like
right?
fall.
So you talk about what the larger
foreign
movement is doing that
policy, right?
needs
Like, is it mostly
the ammunition of divestment. Like university students protesting, for example, can bring about a lot of change. But if they get the immediate change of the
Let's do
university
something
divesting,
easy.
they'll stop.
Something
Yeah.
But overall, good job.
Let's do
Also, work on word economy, so you're more efficient
Oh, yeah.
and less repetitive. But yeah,
let's
you
do
look good
this.
at those.
We can do Okay, actually okay. The US
What?
I've written
Okay,
Are you
the
done?
USFG should
No.
significantly
Haven't.
increase investment in artificial intelligence.
nothing.
Elaine,
I'm over.
stop overthinking your life. I'll turn off the video too.
So wait, I'll give you 10 minutes starting. Wait.
We should probably clip the end of this video